here we have two forces. We've got a 500 Newton force over here and then a 600 Newton force right here. We're going to be finding the magnitude of the resultant force and the angle theta, which is shown, and we want the resultant vector to be directed upwards. So first let's break these two forces into their vector components. Let's start with the 500 Newton force first. Let's just call that F1. So for the I component, we're going to have negative, because it's pointing to the left, 500 sine theta I, and then a positive, because it's pointing upward, 500 cosine theta. Should be a theta j. Alright, so let's save that for later. Now let's go to the 600 Newton force. Let's call that F2. We'll do the same thing. That's going to be a positive x component because it's going to the right. We'll have 600 sine 30 I, and then plus, since it's pointing up, 600 cosine 30 j. Okay, so now we have our two forces. We can find the resultant vector now by adding these forces. So remember, the resultant vector is just the summation of the force vectors. So we'll group up the like components to find our resultant. So we're going to have negative 500 sine theta plus 600 sine 30. That'll be your x component of the resultant. And then plus 500 cosine theta plus 600 cosine 30 j. That'll be your y component. Alright, so now we have that. And we want this resultant vector to be directed up, right? Directed vertically. So what that tells us then is that this component right here, this x component, needs to be equal to 0, because we don't want it going to the left or the right, we just want it going straight up. So we want it looking like this. Alright, so we can set this term here equal to 0. So let's do that. So we'll have negative 500 sine theta plus 600 sine 30, and that's got to equal 0. So from that you can see our only unknown then is theta. So let's solve for theta, and we get 36.87 degrees. Alright, so with that we can plug this in right here to the y component, and that'll give us our resultant force. So our resultant then will be 500 cosine 36.87 plus 600 cosine 30, whoops, which, what does that equal? That equals 919.6, and that's going to be j. So obviously the magnitude then is just going to be 919.6 newtons. Okay, and that is the end of that problem.